Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. Now, before I dive in with my official intro, I've got to say, I always encourage classes to have like a little dance party during that very musical opening. And our North Carolina class, Mrs. Tessa's class, you guys killed it. You rock. So way to go. Thank you so much for that. Now, if you're new to us at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And one of the biggest series we did for years was with the amazing team at Hearts in the Ice. Sunniva Hilda Fallon-Strong joined us live from their hunter's cabin in Norway, Bamsabu. They talked about all sorts of amazing stuff that they were doing to understand our planet, bring scientists in, and do all sorts of great stuff, particularly around climate change. And so, since Sunniva is one of our best friends here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, she said this year, man, we have got to do this Pioneers of the Possible epic series. And so, when she asked, we were like, yeah, let's do that, and bring on some of the coolest people pushing the boundaries of science, exploration, and beyond. I really encourage you, check out that link below. There's been some really, really incredible stories, and we are diving back in literally and figuratively with another amazing broadcast today. So today, we are joined by Rachel Graham. She is the head of MarAlliance. Now, you guys in your classes, you've done projects that have lasted like a day or a week, or maybe in older grades, like a full month. Well, Rachel's project for like decades has been protecting the ocean. And because of that, she has done such incredible work with communities the world over in accomplishing all of those dreams and beyond. And she has been awarded by some of the coolest organizations and people on planet Earth because she is just so good at what she does. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Rachel to blow your minds, tell you a little bit about her story, the ocean, some of the threats it faces, and what we're doing to help them. And if that doesn't sound awesome, I don't know what does. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today on the broadcast, and welcome in.
Hey, it's lovely to be here, and I am so happy I get to meet all of you and tell you a little bit more about the really cool work that's being done by not just me, but my incredible team and so many of our partners, and hopefully inspire you to take up the flag for the seas and sharks.
Ooh, there's no better message than that, and especially for sharks. I know a lot of our kids are a little scared of sharks sometimes, but sharks are the best. And I know, Rachel, you're going to tell us a little bit more about why that is. So if you want to dive in, I'm going to zip my lip, turn it over to you. You can bring up your presentation, and we will go on a little marine adventure together.
Okay, that sounds fine. Let me go ahead and put on my screen. Here we go.
Dun, dun, dun. It wants to work.
We're almost there.
There. And with feeling, this is the joy. It always takes a second. There we go. We're in. We're golden.
Are we good? Woo! Excellent. Well, hello, everybody. I'm so happy I get to share my love of sharks. And also, it's not just a love of sharks in the sea, but it's also how can we have a different way of actually conserving marine animals and their critical habitats, or their key habitats where they live and they eat and more. So this is what I really want to talk to you today about. It's not just the hardcore science, it's how do you engage many people, bring them all to this wonderful table and get them super stoked about marine conservation and shark conservation in particular. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is a picture I took of one of my favorite animals, the whale shark, the largest shark in the ocean. And in fact, the largest fish in the sea. They can reach over 60 feet. And I did my PhD on them. So I got to know them very, very well. I will tell you this, there's a sad fact about whale sharks, and that they might be huge, but their brains are really, really small. So they're capable of incredible navigation around the world seas, but they might not be the sharpest ones out there, but we love them nonetheless. So I may have started with working with whale sharks and getting people super stoked about understanding whale sharks, about conducting some science, because very little was known 30 years about whale sharks. We didn't know where they really aggregated. We didn't know much about their populations, about their behavior, anything. So I focused on that for several years, and we came out with some incredible results in terms of population sizes. We know that the site where I was working in Belize, we had about 106 animals visiting us every year. That's not very many. Count how many people you have in your classroom, and you'll see that 106 is not very much more than what you might have in your classroom or even a part of your school. But after all of the science got transformed into better conservation of whale sharks, we got the species protected in Belize and in a couple of other countries. We got a lot of other people excited about whale sharks. What I found in working with communities towards the conservation of whale sharks, because you can't do any of this work by yourself. So how do you bring on the people who are going to be really at the front lines of working on the marine issues, on conservation, and with fish, because sharks are fish? It's fishermen. And it's the fishermen themselves who told me a lot more about this species. This is what's called traditional knowledge. And so we combined their traditional knowledge and the science that we conducted. And out of that, all of those protections that I mentioned, but more, because then we built up these relationships. They realized we can work together as equal partners. And that's when they started asking me about other species. What's happening with bull sharks? What's happening with Caribbean reef sharks? What are these big groupings of sharks doing? Where are they going? Why are they moving? What are they feeding on? And will sharks harm me, or can I build up a really nice collaborative partnership with sharks? In this case, for example, one of the fisher divers is actually looking for an invasive lionfish that came from the Indo-Pacific. So in the Pacific, unfortunately, it was introduced to the Atlantic, and there are very few predators. And so here, one of the fishers is looking to try and actually spear this invasive species, but the nurse shark is going, man, this is really good food. Let me show you where the lionfish are, and then you can spear them and give them to me. So it just goes to show that we have such a diversity in sharks. We have over 550 species of sharks now, 625 to 650 species of rays. They are discovering new species every single day. And one of the really neat things about them is they have evolved to take over many areas of the oceans, of our oceans. They can live in very deep waters, over 2,000 meters deep. They can live in very cold waters like the Greenland shark. But generally speaking, one of the things that you find with sharks is that they tend to grow very slowly, generally speaking. They can't have babies until they're 8, 10, 15. In the case of the whale shark, 25 to 30 years old, or the Greenland shark, 120 years old or more. And so therefore, if you take some of these sharks out of the sea, you can take a few, but you can't take a lot, because they just can't replace themselves very rapidly, because they grow so slowly, and because they tend to have very few babies, what we call pups. And so why have I focused so much on sharks? Why do I work with fishers on sharks? Because sharks are in trouble. And it's not just small-scale fisheries or around the world, but there's also a huge demand for their parts. It was estimated about 20 years ago that 73 million sharks were being fished every single year. Not just to provide fins like you see drying on a rooftop here for shark fin soup, but also for food. And some of this food might be to sustain people in communities, but it also might be to actually meet religious requirements. So during the month before Easter, a lot of people, like in Central America, don't necessarily eat red meat. And so what can they eat? Usually it's suggested that they eat fish. And the cheapest fish out there is actually shark. And so what they do is they fillet and they salt the shark and they sell it that way. But all of this, and one thing I wanted to add was that there's no discrimination whether these animals are endangered to extinction or there's many of them in the ocean. This is a scalloped hammerhead. This is a critically endangered species, which means that if we continue to fish and remove them from the sea at the rate we are, we will not have scalloped hammerheads in decades to come. So it's not just these critically endangered species, but it's also their babies. Sometimes they're targeted because their meat tastes a lot better. And so all of these little baby hammerheads, for example, have been caught in order to make a dish called ceviche, which is cold marinated fish. It's supposed to be fish, fin fish, but in this case, it's baby sharks in lime juice. And people love to eat it. And the majority of people who are eating it have no idea that they're eating critically endangered hammerhead sharks. And so what we found is that the majority of sharks and rays have some, we've seen declines in populations, and we're now at the point where 37% of the species, those 550 sharks, 625 to 650 ray species, are actually endangered with extinction or threatened, let's say threatened with extinction. If we do not change our ways, and especially reducing unsustainable fishing gears like the use of nets, which is one of the main reasons why we're losing a lot of sharks and rays in the world, we may not see a whole range of species globally. And one ray species just went extinct last year. And you think, well, who cares? Who cares about sharks? Well, they're so important to the ecosystem because they keep the balance in the food chain. So they make sure that if any other fish are frail or old or sick, they'll keep all of those other fish populations healthy. And also, why should we care to know more about sharks? Because in the case of lions, the top predators on land, you've got 23,000 lions, it's estimated. Sharks, we don't know. And that's why baseline monitoring of these sharks and doing it with fishers and community members is so critical, because we do need all hands on deck to figure out how many sharks we have, where are they living, how are they behaving, and how can we rewild the seas with them. I mentioned to you the work that I've done with the whale sharks, but I've moved on from doing a lot of work with whale sharks to all these other species. So the sharks, the rays, even big groupers and turtles, because they all slow life cycles, they grow slowly, they mature late and more. And so they're very much at risk from fisheries. And their habitats are also being hit hard. You've probably heard the news that coral reefs are being hit by higher temperatures in the water. Mangroves are also being a bit hit by coastal development, and seagrasses. A lot of people don't realize that these are the blue lungs of our planet. And so just like you in class, you can't just have a well-rounded education if you just learn a language. You have to also learn math and history and geography and more. And that's the same thing with us. We can't just rewild the seas by doing science and studying sharks. We have to do so much more than that. We have to work with fishers on how do we reduce threats to these animals. We have to also build up alternative ways for fishers and communities to make money. So we're not just saying, hey, you may not want to fish sharks, but you're not offering any other alternatives, because they have families to feed as well. And ultimately, you need to be able to propose policies, what we call policies or management, so that everybody is on the same page on how to better rewild or conserve sharks. And with that, you need outreach and education. So I created MarAlliance in 2014 in order to tackle all these aspects that are required for that main goal that you see in the middle, which is rewilding our seas with endangered marine wildlife. And involving people on the front lines of the sea is absolutely critical. And the base that we started a lot of our work in is in the Mesoamerican Reef. So south from you is the Quintana Roo Department of Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, and the Atlantic coast of Honduras. And we started there because I had started work with sharks there from 1998. And we realized we really didn't know much what was happening with sharks. So I put together this really cool way of involving as many people as possible in trying to create the data that you need to understand how many sharks do we have, how large are those, how are these populations changing over time, what is the diversity of the species, so how many different species do we have, and then of course all kinds of great behavioral information like how deep do they dive, where do they go to when they leave a particular area. And so we use what's called UVC, or underwater visual senses, and we're in the water snorkeling, counting fish, sizing the fish, turtles, rays, sharks as well. We use underwater cameras called BRUVs, baited remote underwater videos, so we can see, we can spy on them when we're not around. And finally, we actually catch the animals, and that enables us to really size them well and put trackers on them and all the rest. And this is what a typical day or outing might look like. Here we all are. I'm working with fishers. I've now trained over 400 fishers and hundreds of students in 15 different countries in how to conduct these monitoring methods. They are the ones who are often in the sea, and they have PhDs at the sea. So they love being in the sea, and they're getting paid to do this monitoring and conservation work. So it's a great alternative to actually fishing. And while they're with us, they're not fishing, which means that we have more fish in the sea during that particular time. This is this underwater camera being set up. And then these fishers, this is a cool thing. These fishers are actually training a whole bunch of other fishers. So it's expanding knowledge, not just beyond, it's well beyond our team, but to entire other parts of the country, other countries, other regions, and more. And of course, the fishers tell me their favorite part is actually catching sharks, because what they used to do would kill the sharks or potentially maim the sharks when they were trying to get them off of their fishing gear. And they fear the sharks terribly. Well, we catch them, we bring them to the side of the boat, we work them up. Here I'm working up a large Caribbean reef shark with Evaristo Muschamp next to me in the red. He's a traditional fisher of like 25, 30 years. And then once we've actually measured and tagged the animal, we release it. This is a juvenile Caribbean reef. We put that little, you see that little tag on the back of the fin? That helps us determine which animal, how to determine which animal we've tagged previously. It helps us do a count of the population. It also helps us know if that shark moves to another area and gets caught by another fisher. And this is how we've known how quickly they grow, where they move to, and so much more. So then the fishers are training other people who come onto expeditions with us, because we bring in some of our donors to experience the work with us. And the fishers are training other scientists. They may not even have beyond a primary school education, and they're training PhDs from other countries. And the confidence that this builds is huge. And it's not just men, it's women in communities who form part of the fishing community. And it's their daughters and their sons who also learn about this, and it becomes a form of work for them. And they then understand how science is conducted, how data are analyzed. And then this feeds back into how they decide how they're going to manage their fishing and their fish. And with all of this work, It's taken 10 years for us to figure out what is the national population level, for example, for the humble nurse shark. Only 14,300 in all of Belize. That's nothing. So when people talk to you about, ooh, shark-infested waters, they are not infested. We have very few sharks in the world. And fishers learning how to deploy satellite tags, which help track like tiger sharks. And this is Zé Luis Monteiro from Cape Verde in West Africa, who put a satellite tag, many satellite tags on tigers, but this one was a female that went all the way from West Africa to Brazil and all the way back again. And he knew how to do all of this science. And it's the working with fishers in all of these scientific endeavors that helped us understand that sharks even have social networks, which sadly I can't go into the details of right now because I know I'm limited on time. But collaboratively, we've found new species of sharks, and we've worked with turtles as well. And most people work with turtles on the beaches because it's so much easier. But then you're only working with adult females. Our job is really to look at the population as a whole. So many of the fishers we work with are incredible free divers, and they were former turtle poachers for some of them. So now they show off their ability to catch turtles like this very large loggerhead, and they help us. And I was going to say they help us put the trackers on. They are putting the satellite trackers on now, and they can follow their journeys online. And then it has really shifted their attitudes towards turtles, and you're seeing a lot less poaching as a result. And this is just to give you an idea of how large some of these turtles are. This is a very large male loggerhead, and the entire team are fishers. They caught them, they tagged this man or this male loggerhead, and they're about to put him back in the sea. And this guy is about 75 years old and weighs about 350 pounds, right? So over 150 kilograms. Yeah, big guy. And it's really important for us to know what's happening with the male turtles, because the rising temperatures on the beaches is also going to determine whether or not the eggs that are laid by the female turtles will become female or male. Higher temperatures lead to more female turtle hatchlings than male. So we're really trying to race against time to understand better what's happening with males. You can go onto our tracking page and you can see a lot of our unexpected turtle migrations, including the story of Peggy, who came up to South Carolina. For those who are in North Carolina, she stopped short of South Carolina. And I think we lost her in Hurricane Milton last year. She stopped transmitting after that. I know that there's so much I want to share with you, but I'll share with you just a quick story again of how when we engage fishers, you see huge shifts in attitudes towards the wildlife. Well, one of the species I've been looking for 30 years is the sawfish. And after surveys in multiple countries in Central America and Panama, we defined that in the Darien, which is the most remote part of Panama, it's abutting Colombia, we had heard that they still had sawfish. This is what they look like. They're a ray. They have this really cool saw. I have a little saw here to show you. And let me see. There we go.
I was showing people the saw. That's all. You're good.
Sorry. Here's the saw.
Perfect.
Yeah, baby saw. And so just to say that our first blended team with our coordinator, Jairo Conampio, you see on the right, and fishers from the region were the first ones in over 20 years to catch, measure, and release a large-toothed sawfish in Central America. And since then, the cool thing is, working with these fishers in the Darien region, we've seen a shift from catching and keeping the sawfish and eating them and just, keeping the rostrum, the saw, what we call the rostrum, to being part of this huge effort to establish a baseline for them, measure them, and then even release. And this is the release of a tiny baby large-toothed sawfish by one of the fishers. Oh my God, they're so cute. They are so cute, and they're so critically endangered. They're one of the most critically endangered vertebrates on the entire planet. And we at MarAlliance, working with our fisher partners, found the first nursery habitat for baby large-toothed sawfish in the entire Americas. So we're really excited about that. And all of this work is helping support new lines of income. And this is really important because when a pandemic hits, right, the scientists can't necessarily move around. Even if we're in country, we could not move from one area to the other, but the fishers could. This was in Cape Verde. They continued to work, and they also gained an income from working in science and conservation during the pandemic. This was tagging sea turtles. So this huge shift of attitudes, you're seeing the fishermen now releasing sharks. I just want to show this quick video because this is so heartening. We've been looking for great hammerheads everywhere. I'm surrounded by fishers. They had caught it. I helped to show them how to actually tag. You see the tag on the fin. You see the young man wagging the tail. And there goes. And that was exciting because they used to catch and kill these animals, and now they were excited that they were actually alive. And it goes even beyond that, because that young man that you saw there on the right-hand side, that's Rydell Torres. Rydell Torres had shaky hands, and he said, "This is the most emotional moment. I'm so happy I get to be part of this work." And he is one of our inaugural Z scholars who is actually working towards improving the situation of sharks in nature. And he is the son of a fisherman. In fact, all of our inaugural Z scholars are either the sons or daughters of fishermen or coastal community members. So we're really, really keen on passing our knowledge to the next generation. This is our incredible fisher and community coordinator, Hilmar Salazar, showing off work with lionfish in Panama, how to use microscopes. Nobody had ever used microscopes before. This is in southern Belize. This is back in Panama, involving local teachers and their classes in water work, introducing kids to sharks in the water, no less, and getting them to actually collect and analyze data so that they're really sparked with joy and learning how to firsthand handle and work with sharks, tagging and tracking and so much more. So we can pass the baton over to the next generation, because rewilding takes many years. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. The two red arrows are young men I started working with. Well, I wasn't working with them at the time. This was in 2000. And now they work with our team. And behind them is their father, who was one of the first fishers I ever worked with in Belize, Eloy Cuevas. So it takes a look at across generations. It takes also making sure that you're not just working with people in the field. You're involving all of the people that you're working with, involve them in the decision-making, involve them in how you set up projects, build their confidence, enable them to speak for this wildlife, and they don't need you because we're only here for a certain period of time. We want all of this work to carry on because this is a long-term endeavor. And that's how we managed to get these really cool policies where we ban nets, for example, in Belize, or we get shark fishing prohibited in other areas. So I'm really pleased that I was able to share a little bit of my love and work with sharks and more, but very importantly, the role that engaging and including people all around you, and especially on the front lines of marine work, the fishers, the community youth, in this work is absolutely essential. Governments will come and go, but the communities will always be there. They are the ones who have the most to gain and the most to lose from conservation. And so you want to make sure that they are helping to drive what conservation you do, be it with sharks or turtles or their habitats or more. So, really, thank you so much for being part of this and listening. And I don't know if you have any other questions for me.
We have lots of questions for you, Rachel. Thank you so much for that in-depth presentation. Mrs. Tessa's class, we're going to head to you guys in North Carolina in a minute. We've got a Fort Wayne, Indiana student that is just obsessed with all sorts of questions on our YouTube chat. We're going to start with Sineva's question from the Pioneers of the Possible side. So Sineva, thank you so much for being a part of this too and helping set up this very special series. And if you want to lead us in with a first query before we head to our live classes, come on in. Hey.
Yeah, Rachel, wow. You inspire. I am just on fire with everything that you've shared. Thank you for being here and sharing your life's work. It's really so important. I just was in Vancouver last week and got to listen to Jane Goodall again. And, one thing that she's thinking about in her team is, and it's on my mind, is this notion of legacy leadership. And
Yes.
You really embody that spirit of legacy-minded leadership. And, I used to think that being an explorer meant like skiing to the South Pole or climbing mountains or spending 19 months in the Arctic. And the real exploration is actually in my backyard. It's in our community. And so I just want to ask you, because MarAlliance has been around for 11 years now, if I got the math correct.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and you're not only doing work with scientists, you're doing a lot of conservation by engaging the general public and the communities on your 73 plus expeditions, where you demonstrate rather concretely how community-led conversation rewilds our oceans. You've just eloquently shared all that, so thank you. But I just wonder, like from where you sit now today, the science is very important, but the connection to the science and the understanding of what the science informs is probably the most important thing. What is that like for you? And is there anything you've learned about either the challenges or maybe the wins around empowering communities to really own, what they're doing, rather than relying on outside experts, because the community can pass that on from generation to generation, which is the legacy part. Can you speak to that for a second?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I found, and which has really provided the drive for the approach that I've taken with my team and all my partners, is I just saw over decades this trend of people parachuting in from the north, from the States, Canada, Europe, Australia, deep south, parachuting into tropical countries where I've lived for the last 30 years, and conducting the science and not training anybody and then leaving. And so all the data goes with them, all the understanding, all the methods, everything. And so the site, the community, the people who are dependent on knowing how their natural world is doing have nothing to work with. And I have to say, it came as a blow my mind moment when I worked in Bolivia, for example. I went in to do some work with my master's thesis in communities and forests in Bolivia. And I was just like, no, this cannot be. Why don't we have more data than we have? Why don't people have the facts to be able to make the decisions on how they should proceed with, do they keep this forest or that one, if they have to choose between the two? So it's that really developed in me. And I have to give a lot of credit to my mother as well. My mother, Christine McCallum, worked with many communities and women in particular, and very much in that kind of train women who then need to train other women, that outlook. And I just carried that over to the marine. And what I found is that this is a process that takes a very long time, because many countries have not had science as a priority in their curriculum. They just haven't had what they might deem as the luxury, or they may not have had some of the professorial capacities to be able to teach science. So coming in and trying to ignite curiosity and spark for science, and then the slow building of scientific knowledge that is created in country and taught from one person in country to another. So a lot of South-South sharing has been absolutely essential. It takes decades to create. I think we're on the right path now, but we've still got a ways to go.
What a fantastic answer. Thank you so much, Rachel. And we're going to head to our classes now. We got a bevy of classes that are really keen on some questions. So North Carolina, you guys are up first, Ms. Tessa's class. We'll head to our Indiana group, and we'll see if we can get 2 questions per group over the next 5 or so minutes together that we have. So Ms. Tess, welcome in and take us away. Hi. So nice to have you in. Do you have any questions about ocean sharks? Anything we've learned today?
Yes. We have one question.
Go for it.
Nope, just Ben.
What's the most surprising thing you ever seen in the ocean?
Ooh, no pressure.
Oh, probably an aggregation of close to 200 whale sharks.
Pretty great. That's the biggest fish in the ocean. 200 of those is a pretty special thing to see. You know what? That was a really quick answer. I'm going to come back to you guys because you had multiple questions. So let's go back and we'll see what else we've got. Come on in.
What is your favorite sea creature and what makes it special?
Ooh, no pressure, Rachel.
That's a hard one. I have to say, I used to absolutely give my heart over to the whale shark, but I have to say, I think the great hammerhead has it now. And the reason for that is because they've got these amazing dorsal fins. So this is the dorsal fin. They've got an amazing dorsal fin that helps them turn really, really quickly. And get this, and I bet your teacher and your moms would love this. They have 360-degree vision from their eyes. So they can see behind them, above them, in front, and all the rest. So there you have it. Great hammerhead.
Pretty cool answer. They're a very special shark. What a great question, guys. All right, we're going to head to Fort Wayne for a couple online. They wanted to ask first, are you able to do any passive acoustic monitoring, and does that help in any of your research? Could you explain?
Absolutely. I've read a lot. That's how I determined the social networks with sharks. Myself and my team, we analyzed that paper and information on that, and a poster available on our website if you should be interested. And if you have questions that we can't answer today, you can always send them to info@MarAlliance.org.
Very, very cool. Well, we already have more than we could possibly take in one broadcast, which is the best problem to
Bring
have.
them on. Bring them on.
We'll take one more from YouTube, and then we'll head back to our live class. So many questions. Okay, what's a really good one? Okay. What made all your hard work worth the struggle? You've highlighted so much throughout the course of today. It's a big question, but has there been anything specifically that really is, gets you up in the morning?
I think it's many of the same thing. It's just, I am on WhatsApp, and I tell you so regularly, I'm getting WhatsApps from fishermen I have trained, I have engaged with, who will send me pictures of maybe a great hammerhead that they saw while they were fishing. And instead of the boy, I'm scared of that, we should have killed it, they're like, look how beautiful this animal is. And by the way, it was 12.5 feet long, and I couldn't tell if it was male or female, but it looked like it was doing X and Y. So we've seen this big shift away from fear and wanting to turn sharks into food, into just curiosity and wanting to participate in the science.
I really encourage our classes. If you go to our YouTube channel, it's really interesting to see that conservation globally, whether it's marine, whether it's land-based, so much of it now is community-led. So it's bringing in communities from wherever the people are. It's not someone coming in and saying, hey, we're going to do it this way. It's seeing what the local needs of the community are and getting people who would otherwise be people that would harm or at least be neutral towards animals to become really vested in them, in the same way that in North Carolina and Indiana and Newfoundland, like we had a moose on the university campus the other day, and that's spectacular. How cool is that to live in a place where a huge animal could be like right in the heart of town, hopefully safely as much as possible, but like we're all really vested in that here. So I encourage you, find out what lives close to you, find out what might be endangered or threatened, get involved. There's so many ways that classes can get involved. We covered a few of those today, but that's a really beautiful answer. Thank you, Rachel. We're going to head back to our North Carolina group. Speaking to you guys, you're all writing. I don't know if you're doing questions or artwork or what you're doing, but I love your enthusiasm. So come on back in with one more query. Hey, guys.
All right, Tal. What was the most rarest thing you ever seen in the ocean?
The rarest. What's the least common?
Okay, so I probably, because I only saw this once, there's a bunch of things that I've only seen once, but I thought that this was really cool. I saw a whale shark feeding on the surface, and what they do is they kind of put themselves in this bottle formation, this vertical bottle formation, and little fish swirl around them, then larger fish swirl around the little fish, and then sharks swirl around the big fish, and there the whale shark will open its mouth, and then the little fish think, oh, there's a cave. It'll protect me. It goes into the mouth of the whale shark, but it gets even better. We had a booby bird, they're called boobies, sitting perched on the lips of the whale shark, and then basically pecking and fishing for the fish inside the whale shark's mouth before the whale shark closed its mouth, went, whoop, swallowed, and that was it.
That's pretty amazing. It's hard to top that level of nature.
I know, right? And I've been in the water with countless sharks and all the rest, but that was a once in a lifetime view. That was really cool.
Neat. I'm going to encourage our classes, if you want to see like the best footage ever from all sorts of nature stuff, Blue Planet 2 is the best series ever made on nature. So any ocean creature you're keen on, it's probably in there. You can get this at a library. You can buy it. You can get it as a school. Like, I can't encourage you to watch enough. And of course, MarAlliance.org. So much to explore and discover there to keep learning going when we're done. Now,
and go see our tracking page. You can see our tracking page on MarAlliance. We also have expeditions where older folks, sorry, not the little ones yet, but the older folks can come and join us and learn to actually work with us and our fisher partners and help conserve sharks and, do the science.
Now, other than send people there, because time flies and you're having fun and we are nearing the end of the broadcast, is there a final message you want to leave us with before we say goodbye to our classrooms and bring them in to say farewell?
Absolutely. And that is that you guys can do. It doesn't matter what you're really into. You can turn it to make it matter for nature. And you might not be into sharks, but you might be into, birds or snakes or anything else. Just find something that sparks your curiosity, that gets you excited about nature. And even if you don't want to be a biologist, that's okay. You can be, you can draw, you can do all kinds of other things, code, be an engineer, all of those things. Just remember, you can actually orient all of that you do to really support nature. And by supporting nature, by consuming less, eating less seafood, for example, so we have more fish in the sea, drawing for nature, all of that's going to help. Everybody can do little things that will make a big difference for our seas and our wildlife.
No better message than that. Now, to bring it all back home with our Pioneers of the Possible series, which again I encourage all our class to check out, I'm going to bring back in Sunniva for one final question before we say a big thank you and farewell. And I will say, when we do that too, if you're at home on YouTube and you want to scream and yell and annoy the principal as well, you have our permission in this broadcast. So, Sunniva, thank you so much, and come on in with your final query.
Rachel, I just want to say thank you. You are a star in the universe, and today, April 24th, but the entire month is Citizen Science Month. And so I think so much of what you're sharing with the youth and the audience and on YouTube is just spot on. And that is, be curious and peel open the eyes of discovery into the ocean and our natural world. And, I am not one of those young ones. And so I have a lot of people in my world that want to join projects like yours. And would you suggest they just go to the expedition page on your MarAlliance.org website? And
absolutely, that's a great way of also supporting our long-term monitoring that I showed you many slides of being basically you learn to be a marine biologist and a shark biologist in 1 week, and it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. Yeah.
Thank you from the bottom of the ocean and the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Suniva. It's just been a joy. I love chatting to you when we're in the Explorers Club as well. And thank you very much for all of your support for nature and exploration. And as I say to everybody, stay curious, ask questions, and keep the hope.
Absolutely. Jesse, thank you too.
Thank you so much to both of you. We're going to bring in our Miss Tessa's class. And again, YouTubers, if you want to yell out too, but thank you so much for joining us today in North Carolina with your amazing questions. Have a wonderful day, everybody.